Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead, and I'm making chicken noodle soup today. And I'm going to show you how to make noodles, but also how to make them with your Omega juicer. Here I have my little food processor. And noodles are really easy. You don't need a food processor, you don't need a noodle maker. All you need is flour, eggs, salt, a rolling pin, and a pizza cutter. But I have the equipment, so I'm going to use it. I also have some dehydrator trays. Now make no mistake, I am not dehydrating these noodles. They will just turn to powder the first time you cook them if you do. So I just put them on here and stack them just so that they get air circulation. If you don't have that, use a drying rack. So here we've got flour. We're going to add, I'm going to say that's about a cup of flour, and I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt. Mother Nature's preservation. 1 egg. Now you can add a little bit of water if your dough is too heavy, but you really don't need to. You can add more egg, but you want it mostly egg. And since I have lots of eggs, that's what we're going to use. Eggs are in surplus, so I'm making pickled eggs, I'll be oiling eggs, I'm making egg noodles. Now I'm going to make egg noodles, so I'm using this little thing. Alright, this is how this machine works. It's a juicer, but it's also a noodle maker, and I love it. So we're going to put the auger in there. We're going to put this piece that holds it in place. This is not the one that allows it to drain. It's got the solid back there. And we're going to put this covering the bottom. We're going to put our little thing on top, and we're just going to screw this all together. And it doesn't even have to be screwed. You just turn it once to the closed thing, and then we make sure this is open. We put this in, and that Bob's your uncle. There it is. I have discovered it's much better to put your eggs in first, because it doesn't always get all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to throw my drier dough back in here and start with that. Yeah, don't put your flour in until your eggs are in. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's have a look. Oh, that's perfect. See? Put the eggs in first, then the salt and the flour. It's somewhat sticky, but better sticky than too dry. Make sure that when you're putting it in, it's thinner. And that way your auger will pull it in. And for now, we will just cut and cut and cut, and then we'll put another hunk of our dough in. Yes, folks, all my equipment is clean, and so are my hands. I've got organic flour, home-raised eggs, and well water, and pink Himalayan salt. How much better can these noodles get? All right, when I have more dough fixed up, we'll be back. Now, while I separate these noodles for drying, I'm going to tell you a little story. Now, I told you, you don't need fancy machinery, fancy equipment of any kind to make good, fresh egg noodles. All you need is a rolling pin, a pizza cutter, pair of scissors, good sharp knife, any kind of instrument like that, flour, eggs, and salt. That's all you need. And I'm going to tell you, I know because I did it. I'm one of those people. Remember? I do research. Well, right now on my reading channel, I think it's called Reading with Beverly Wolfie, I'm reading the book A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. In that book, Francie and her mom go to visit her aunt, Sissy. Now, this was in the early 1900s, like before the First World War, 1911, somewhere around there. Anyway, they went to visit Aunt Sissy, and Aunt Sissy was making their monthly supply of noodles. And all she said in the book was she watched Aunt Sissy work up stiff yellow dough. She worked up stiff yellow dough and rolled it out with a rolling pin and then rolled it up and sliced it. And then she unrolled the slices and hung them on doweling, a rack made of doweling by the wood stove or by the cook stove. And I went, huh. So then I did a little research, and I can't remember exactly, but I think it was Food That Really Schmecks, Mennonite Cooking, or something. But anyway, one day a friend of mine who raised duck eggs, she lost her contract for duck eggs. And she was giving them to like the animal shelters and food banks and all that stuff. And I went over one day and said, do you got any eggs? And she started laughing because I always bought my chicken eggs from her before I got my first chickens. And she told me, and she gave me 3 flats. Now there's 30 eggs in a flat, okay? 2.5 dozen? Yeah, 30 eggs in a flat. And of duck eggs. Now I'm not hugely fond of duck eggs, but they're great for baking and they're great for cooking. So I got out this cookbook and I looked it up and I found out how bloody easy it was to make egg noodles. So what I did, and this was the very first time, before I ever bought my hand crank machine or anything, I made noodle dough. I made noodle dough and I rolled it out. Oh, my shoulders. This is back though. We're talking, 20 years ago, right? And I'm rolling out this stiff dough and I'm cutting it up with a sharp knife and I'm hanging it on coat hangers. And then Howie would take the coat hangers and he would hang them from each other over the wood stove. And they dried and I would put them in big Tupperware containers in the freezer. I didn't know if they were shelf stable or not. So I let mine dry and put them in the pantry and I use them and they're fine. But some people may want to freeze them. But that's how easy it is. Now remember I said don't dehydrate your noodles? There's a reason, because there's a fine line between drying and dehydrating. Only put your noodles on the dehydrator if you can make it to a setting no higher than 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. Why? Because you'll powder them. You'll go to use them and they'll just shatter. Now, I'm only going to have these on for a couple of hours. I just want to dry them. And these are the noodles. This little sandwich plate will make a lot of noodles in our soup tonight. Okay, so here is approximately a shoebox size full of noodles. I'm going to say this probably weighs about 3 pounds. And they're dry, but because I'm putting them in a plastic container, if you're going to use them up within the next couple of weeks, you can throw them on in a jar in your pantry. But we don't eat them that often, so just to be on the safe side, I'm putting them in this container, and I'm just going to put them in the freezer. There is enough here for a good 6 large pots of chicken noodle soup. This is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying when you've got organic flour, pink Himalayan salt, and fresh eggs coming out the wazoo, it's a no-brainer. Make egg noodles. Take care. God bless.